Hey everyone, it's a pleasure to welcome you all to this special recording. We are incredibly fortunate to have with us a distinguished therapist and author, Dr. Eddie Capparucci. Eddie is renowned for his innovative approach to treating addictive behaviors and deep emotional issues, and he's been specifically working in the field of porn addiction and sex addiction for the last 13 years. He's the creator of the inner child model, which has been instrumental in helping individuals understand and heal their deepest wounds. His work is widely respected, and he's authored several impactful books, including Going Deeper, How the Inner Child Impacts Your Sexual Addiction, and Removing Your Shame Label. I'm grateful that Eddie was able to get on a call with me and give us some of his valuable time so that he could share some of his insights and expertise with our group and help a lot of our members feel more peace knowing that there is hope for recovery. First thing I want to say is thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to meet with me. I know that you've got a lot of things going on, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come and give value to the different women that we have that are going to be seeing this video. Really appreciate the heart that you have behind your mission with helping couples overcome this addiction.
Thanks for having me, Rick. I really appreciate it. And I always enjoy talking, on different forums that I haven't been to before. Sometimes I've done some multiple times, and it's always good to go in and see something different and fresh. And you're right. I hopefully what we're going to do today is produce something that's going to bring a lot of value to women who are hurting right now.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's a really good emphasis. The more frames of reference that you can get with different avenues of people teaching similar things, but in different ways, just to really strengthen in your understanding of what this addiction entails. I think it's super important to helping people to get through this addiction together with their partner. I know that for us and the women that we talk to, there's a lot of women who are struggling right now with trying to help their partner understand how using pornography is actually cheating in their monogamous relationship. So, based on your 13 years of experience helping men through this battle, how would you explain the process for how most men finally begin to understand that the use of pornography is unfaithful and that their porn addiction is something that they can't continue on with in their relationship? Or what are the light bulb moments that you tend to see where it just clicks for them and they get serious about it and they get that feeling like they have to change, they must do it, and there's no other option?
Well, fortunately, the number of men who I've seen over the years who come in and say, oh, there's nothing wrong with porn is not the majority by a long shot, okay? There are a handful, and the part of it is they see the amount of pain it has caused their partner to have to go through and suffer. But to answer your question, what do you do to help them see? I take a step back first. And I said, you know what? Let's not even talk about, you're saying porn's okay. You're telling me the women who watch or who participate are, they have a high sex drive and they're in it for the money. And that no one's getting hurt. There are no victims here. So what I want to try to do first and foremost is to get them to see that, you know what? That thinking is completely false. And I used it one, little kind of story I came up with. Tell me the time when you met that 12-year-old girl
Mhm.
and you asked her, honey, what do you want to do when you grow up?
Mhm.
And she said, I want to take my clothes off in front of a camera and have sex with strange men and women.
Right. I absolutely love that analogy. My fiance and I actually did an interview podcast with each other about our side of recovery. And that was one of the exact examples that we had actually come up with too. It's so ridiculous when you frame it like that. It's just like no little girl is dreaming of this when they're 12 years old.
Right. Now, no dreaming of it. However, and I'll say this, I think there are some of those little girls out there,
Mhm.
but they have been scarred deeply, I
Right.
mean, deeply, by someone or someone who have left them to feel they have nothing
Mhm.
to give except their bodies. That's it. They have lost all sense of self,
Mhm.
and they have been destroyed.
Right.
And that was so. Therefore, that stopped men in their tracks. Like I've never had a man who's been able. I mean, their eyes get like the size of quarters, and
Mhm.
it's just like, oh my gosh. The other aspect, of course, is for them to understand that, you're saying, okay, I'm looking at these images, and it had nothing to do with my wife and how I love her.
Mhm.
Well, but you know what? You're looking at those images and you're lusting. There's lust that's going on.
Right.
Whether you masturbate or not, there's lust.
Mhm.
Making her feel I'm not enough.
Right.
Also making her feel there's something wrong with me.
Mhm.
He doesn't want me. And you know what's really sad, Rick? My wife and I, who she also does counseling too, we've seen women go and have surgery done,
Mhm.
okay, body enhancing surgery, face enhancing surgery to try to appease men. We've seen women who have engaged in sexual practices that they would have never thought to ever do,
Right.
but they've done it in order to please him, and now they are just so full of just shame,
Mhm.
feeling so dirty
Right.
about what they've done. So therefore, those are the the tact that I take to try to, show men that pornography, one, is not a victimless thing, and
Mhm.
two, it is very, very destructive to the person who you're supposed to be, faithful.
Yeah, that was a really great response. You've made so many good points in there. And I think something that really hits home for me that was part of my journey was in today's society, in my generation in particular, life's so busy and our parents are so busy. We've got all these households where both parents are a lot of times working and working full time, and they don't have the time to really dedicate and commit to, unless they really make it a priority, to really help their kids develop the best way that they possibly can, particularly when it comes to the amount of technology that we have growing up in today's households. And I think that that kind of plays into a role for my own generation. And I'm speaking from my personal experience here, just on how much disconnect there was for me having gotten addicted from pornography, or to pornography rather, at such a young age. I started viewing when I was around 9 years old, 8, 9 years old, and that created so much isolation for me, and so many of the men that I speak with has created so much isolation for them that there's this disconnect of really being able to take a look at somebody, kind of like you're talking about those 11, 12-year-old girls that have been through so much trauma, abuse, like terrible histories that got them to this point to where now they're participating in pornography. And so the ability for me to finally do that maturing and developing that I needed to really have compassion and understanding for each individual's journey, like where did they come from? How did they start in their childhood? What was their home life like? How did that all contribute to the way that they've become today? And really to have compassion for each person based on their experience and why they are, having understanding for why they are in the place that they are. And I feel like that's a transformation that absolutely has helped me with being able to understand my fiance Katie so much better, is just being able to understand what her upbringing was and what her expectations were coming into a relationship. And kind of as you're talking about, like when we're lusting after somebody else, when we're having a desire for somebody else, that is very painful for our partners to even know that that's happening within our bodies, because I think that's the whole heart and soul behind monogamy, is that those things are meant for your partner, right? To me, that's what creates that bond, that connection, that closeness. And when you're giving those things away, whether it's somebody in real life in person or if it's to a screen, and even if it's not pornography, but if you're not getting the majority of that connection with your partner, you're kind of defeating the purpose in my mind of what it means to be in a monogamous relationship.
So that's why we talk about pornography addiction, talk about sex addiction.
Mhm,
We refer to it as an intimacy disorder because that's what it is.
mhm,
In my, you know, uh, one of my books, Why Men Struggle to Love, I talk all about the idea that, for a large majority of the men who struggle with addiction, they don't know how to emotionally engage and bond. I
mm,
mean, they can't make a connection like this. They can make,
right.
and that connection to them feels like this.
Mhm,
They think it's this, but it's not.
right.
Or not being able to go deeper in that bond,
Mhm,
it's easy for them to just move away whenever they feel that there is a threat in the relationship. And they bring all of these fears into the relationship, just like women bring their fears in also.
mhm,
Men are willing to sit and talk about what the fears are.
right.
Men are not. So therefore, what do men do instead of engaging, let's talk more?
Mhm,
No, let me pull away, pull
mhm,
away, pull away. And as you said, when I pull away,
mhm,
sitting here, I don't know what to do with it
mhm,
because I can't talk to her. I don't want to talk to her. I'm afraid.
right.
So what do? I'm not going to think about it, just like we did when we were kids, and we run off and we use pornography to soothe ourselves.
Mhm,
And I'll say another thing you brought up before about
mhm,
this has become a babysitter.
right. The worst babysitter ever.
There are so many parents that are doing a complete injustice to their children because they're putting screens in front of them constantly.
Right.
And a lot of times they put those screens in front of them and there's no blockers or anything to be able to prevent. The
Mhm,
kids stumble across it. They're not looking for it.
yeah.
I say, oh, I wonder what it's like to see a naked woman.
Mhm,
Well, there are a couple. I've seen a few, but
mhm,
very rare.
right.
But in the case, we need to be guarding their heart. We need to be
Mhm,
guarding their eyes.
right.
We need to be having conversations with them, talking to them about these types of things. That's why I love the ministry, Be Broken Ministry. They do a lot of work with parents to try to help them in educating their children about the dangers of pornography, as well as what are some of the tools and resources you can use if the child's already started. Even Fight the New Drug,
Mhm.
if another great resource for many people to turn to.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's such a difficult balance too, because you don't want to put your kids in this situation where they're so deprived from electronics that it's like the forbidden fruit that like once they get access to it, they just go out and binge. But it's kind of like a delicate balance where you have to give them the tools that you're doing your best to help protect them with having some sort of blockers. I know one that we promote, a couple of them are Canopy and Bark, and then but it's like you're never going to shield them from everything, nor should we, because they also we have to be able to teach them how to manage their emotions, to have healthy emotional regulation so that they don't fall into the same pitfalls as some of, like the men that we're working with pornography addiction, where it's like that's their source of regulation. Right, exactly. The men like us who fell into that trap, like we have to help them to avoid it. And in order to avoid it, they have to learn the healthy coping skills and get in the habit of managing their emotions in a healthy way when they're younger. But it brings challenges because people have built busy lives. And so I think that's one of the biggest things why I advocate everybody to some degree, whether it's a couples therapist or an individual therapist, have somebody that you're working with that's a professional regularly that you talk to about these different things, because it can feel you can almost feel crazy at times because some things are so normal to see in life that you feel like you're the odd one out, that you're caring so much about how your kids being raised and how much screen time you're permitting them, the different blockers that you're putting on, whether or not you're letting them on social media. It's really it's a really challenging thing to go through, and to go through it on your own, I don't think I wouldn't recommend that to anyone.
I raised two children, and you know what? I've always lived a very busy life.
Mhm.
However, my children were a major priority for me, and they have to be.
Right.
Okay, for me, God, about children, everything else. Even though my work was a very busy one, and if you know what, if you're gonna have kids, make sure you're going to make that commitment to put the effort, energy, dedication into raising them properly.
Mhm.
Because if you're not, then don't have children.
Right.
Because all you're doing is you're just creating people who later on, by not feeding them what you should be feeding them,
Mhm. Right.
they're going to wind up hurting other people by
If only we
that.
could get
I get off my soapbox.
You're good. If only we could go back and inject that truth into, some of the people who've been in that situation. But even those people, when they're at where they're at and they're making those decisions to have the kids, it feels maybe like the right thing to do because of idealisms or social pressure. There's so many different factors that could be influencing why they feel like it's something that they're supposed to do or that they should do. And but like you're saying, it's that maturity that they don't have yet, which unfortunately comes through experience when we learn from our mistakes, and then it's like you can kind of realize later on I wasn't ready. But sometimes it's kind of that little push that we do need if we really do want kids and we really do have a priority for family and making sure that they're raised right, that can kind of jumpstart us into, okay, now it's not an option, now I have to read the books because kids on the way. um
Right.
but I think another thing to that too is so many of us can fall into a generational cycle, which is, I believe, a big part of the mission of what Katie and I have, and for yourself and the different colleagues that you have that you work with against pornography addiction, is a big mission to help to stop and break the different generational cycles. Would you say that that was also a common thing for you?
That is exactly what we're doing.
Right.
That is what our mission is, to stop this generational curse.
Mhm.
Because we've never seen it more available than we have in the last now 40 years. Okay, it's incredible to think that it's 40 years. Yeah, actually, it's been maybe 30 or internet porn.
Mhm.
Before that, it was a lot easier to get your hands on VHS tapes and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, but today, again, we pick this thing up and it's
Yeah.
right there. So we're in a really difficult battle.
Yeah.
One thing that I think has been wonderful that I'm seeing is that we're watching states that are now putting in age verification
Mhm.
tools for anyone who wants to go to.
Yeah.
Here in North Carolina, we have it. If I wanted to go to an adult site, I'm going to have to give them my driver's license
Mhm.
where they can validate that I'm, an adult.
Right.
I can't imagine why adults would want to give their driver's license for something like that, but
Mhm.
they do. But at least now we're starting to have more control over what the kids can see. But never mind that, because again, I mean, just turn on television
Mhm.
where and I think back to when I grew up in the late '60s, early '70s as a teenager, and you know, TV was pretty. It was just kind of okay. It was
Mhm.
just starting
Yeah.
here and there, just starting to do that, to see where it became more sexualized.
Mhm.
Uh, Today, I mean, it's like in almost every
Mhm.
that there's something there. I mean, that show Friends, I never really watched it, but
Mhm.
somebody had told me that there was one, where the girls were like, "Oh, it's porn night tonight," and they're gonna get all their porn and they're gonna sit together and watch it. It's like, you gotta be kidding me.
Right.
But they what we're promoting, but that's what we're doing.
Mhm.
There is a big need. There's not a lot of folks like myself, you, and your
Mhm.
fiance that are out there doing this work. We need more
Yes.
people who are going to be able to meet the need because it's becoming an epidemic.
Yeah.
Becoming an epidemic among our kids because, like I said, they can see it, and the message is for little boys. The message is, hey, it's okay to objectify little girls,
Right.
and for little girls, the message is it's okay to be objectified.
Mhm.
That's horrible.
Right. And you see it in social media. That's the whole trend is guys are, looking at this stuff since they're probably, depending the average age is somewhere between anywhere between like 8 and 12, depending on the study you look at. But
Where we looking
and then yeah, so then they learn that that's what they're attracted to, and then obviously women are going to try and compete for their attention, which is a losing battle in itself because you can't compete with millions of endless supply of this lusting that they're after. It's just that yeah, it's really tragic for the way that our society is headed in that area, and the amount of subconscious beliefs that people don't even know that they're developing as they're getting hooked into the pornography at such a young age, and how they're viewing women, viewing them as objects, and they don't even realize it. And even like when somebody like you go talk to a porn addict when they're first kind of coming into their own realization that this is actually a problem for them, and you try and explain these things to somebody that's just, a self-admitted porn addict, and they just kind of figured it out based on their relationship with their partner and seeing the different ways that it's negatively impacting their life. And it's like they don't get it. Like there's a lot of missing information yet to really bring the puzzle together and put it together for them to lay it out so that they can really have a clear understanding of all the different ways that this has really negatively impacted them in their life.
if you look at porn, it's teaching our children a lot about sex.
Mhm.
This is what sex is. But it's also teaching them somewhat this is what love is. Love is about sex.
Right.
And this is one of the biggest issues that you have with men who struggle with pornography.
Mhm.
They base relationships on physical intimacy.
Right.
And they'll sprinkle in whatever little they know about emotional intimacy
Mhm.
to try to make it look, you know, clean.
Right.
But but the problem is one, after a while, somebody, the spouse usually or their partner usually pick up on it
Mhm.
and realize, feel like I'm being used.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's not the way God made that sex design or relationship design. It's supposed to be based
Mhm.
on it. So therefore, again, the messages that are being delivered through pornography to our youth, to our teens, to young adults,
Mhm.
I mean, that way creating a whole new society of people who, again, there are women who, young girls, I mean, 14, 15, 16, they're doing things with their boyfriend that they would never,
Right.
but they're doing it because they're thinking, well, I saw it on porn,
Mhm.
he told me porn, and I guess we could do that. That's what people do. That's what adults do.
Yeah.
Let's do it. But then it winds up leaving them in such a state of shame
Mhm.
for somebody.
Yeah, I think we're really on the brink of just seeing how much destruction that this is going to have on couples who do have kids together, because these problems are in every relationship where porn porn addiction is present. This isn't something that just Mhm.
About a year ago, it was um, taken by um, an attorney's advocate group.
Mhm.
Said that of divorces, almost 50% of all divorces,
Mhm.
pornography is listed as.
Absolutely. I think that Fight the New Drug has that one on their website too. I think I saw that one
Okay.
on there. Um, but yeah, it's just it's becoming such a systemic problem in our society that at some point you just can't ignore it anymore, where we're going to have so many broken homes over this, and so many people are not going to be able to have that connection that is like, what else are you gonna blame it on?
Well, but again, if you're going to get, but if you're really going to get rid of it, there are
Mhm,
things you talk about
right.
really important.
Mhm,
It's tragic.
yeah.
The homes that I've seen broken up because of pornography.
Mhm,
Okay? That alone is not going to stop this problem.
right,
What you have to do is you have to cut off the money supply.
right, right. Yep.
There are billions and billions of dollars
Yeah.
that are being made.
Well,
As long as that continues, there will be don't be this problem. Start cutting off that
mhm,
supply. Start driving some of the producers out of business.
right.
Then you can see we can make somewhat more of a dent in it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so tragic when you literally look at the numbers of it, how much more money pornography and the sex industry makes than the next top 4 industries combined. It's not it's just it's unfathomable.
It
Um,
is.
Going back to what you were saying earlier about, that kind of connection as far as what we're learning when we do get addicted to pornography. In my experience, as you were talking about men earlier and how they learn that kind of like love and intimacy is like this and not quite like this. In my experience with that I attribute that to is that you don't know how to get here because you never had the practice of a secure emotional attachment to another primary attachment figure. Would you say that's accurate from what you've seen, or
That is,
what would you say, like, how do you bridge that gap?
that is one of the factors, or many factors, for why we are emotionally undeveloped.
Mhm.
The leading one is, however, the fact that our home, that family of origin, is not a breeding ground of connection.
Yes.
It is stagnant. It
Mhm.
is flat. Our parents are emotionally wounded.
Yes.
Their parents were it's generational, and they just keep bringing it. Just like you talked about with the use of porn or sex, when they cut that, it's the same thing when we're talking about being emotionally undeveloped.
Mhm.
We need to be able to start the process of saying stop. My wife and I were both emotionally
Mhm.
married, and we said, you know what, we're going to stop this. We're going to put effort and time and energy into helping our kids become emotional,
Yes.
and it's there. So yes, one, not having the model certainly.
Mhm.
Two, nobody teaching you what are the words when you're upset about something. What are the words that identify different emotions?
Yes.
Instead, we get shut up. Stop your crying. I'll give you something to cry about. You got to go to your room. They're not teaching us anything.
Mhm.
Challenge us to try to be more attuned to other people, not attuned to us.
Right.
So therefore, what do? We turn inward
Mhm.
in order to survive from an emotional perspective. And most of us, we wind up withdrawing more, isolating, and in our isolation, we go and we try to find other things we can do to one, forget about our emotional distress, okay, and two, to stimulate us
Mhm. Right.
so that we don't have to deal with it. So
Mhm.
there is, like I said in my book, Blind Men Struggle to Love, I identified 14 what I call blind spots. Those are the things that really trouble us that we can't, like for example, lack of curiosity.
Mhm.
Now I'm not talking about curiosity of things. I'm talking about curiosity about people.
Right.
You could be very interested in politics and sports and gardening, cooking. We're talking about digging in to find out what's that person about? What are their dreams? What are their aspirations? What are their fears? We don't know that.
Right. Really getting to know somebody, like, deep down, actually know who they are. Absolutely.
Correct. Exactly. So that's one of them. The other one is being inwardly focused.
Mhm.
Okay. Focused on what we want, what we need, what we desire, and we're not looking outward toward others. Is the lack of mindfulness is one. Fear is another one. I think fear is the biggest one. Fear keeps us from, taking the chance to be vulnerable. I don't
Mhm.
want to be vulnerable because what if that's not accepted? What if they throw something back at me? Well, you shouldn't feel that way.
Right.
It's like, all right, fine. You know what? I'm just not going to say anything, or I don't know what to say.
Mhm.
I don't know how to say it. Again, and these are all valid things for if the women who are dealing with a partner who's struggling with pornography,
Mhm.
everything I'm talking about right now, they're going to be saying, "That's him. Oh, he knows my husband. He knows my boyfriend. He knows."
Yep.
But
Mhm. Right.
no,
Mhm.
we have to. It can't be. Oh, I no longer do that.
Right.
So let me go sit in my recliner and watch the baseball game, the football game, whatever.
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
no, we have to learn to engage because if you don't
Mhm.
learn how to emotionally connect, you're just going to go find something else to zone out with.
Right.
Because that, believe it or not, guys, that's what you want most. You want emotional connection. You just don't know it.
Right. And what I love about that is when you really look at the nitty gritty of it, what we crave and desire in life really comes down to something that's happening within us internally and not externally. All these different feelings that we have that are driving us towards something, they come from neurochemicals that are released in our brains that we have neurotransmitters for. And so it's like, okay, so my brain is craving something and I'm trying to fulfill that craving with something that man created as opposed to something that was naturally available to man. And what was naturally created that was available to us that was supposed to fulfill that purpose. It wasn't TV, it wasn't video games, it wasn't pornography, it's other people. And once you get that connection and that emotional stability with others and you can be accepted, that was a big one for me, then you can really start to establish more of that emotional maturity and really begin to feel secure in your recovery. Kind of as you're saying, like it's not just about abstinence. I feel like
Number one antidote
mhm,
to pornography
mhm,
addiction is relationships.
right.
Relationship with God, relationship with
Mhm,
the number one antidote.
yes.
If you cultivate those, I, I try to tell men, I go, emotional intimacy is so much more powerful than physical intimacy.
Mhm.
And most of them kind of just nerd, yeah, right? But once they get into it, they see it, and
Yep.
they realize, they say, oh,
You're missing out on so
no,
much.
I never, oh, I was vulnerable with her today.
Mhm.
And she sat there and she was like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that that was going on. You know what? You know what? How can I help you? He goes, I want to cry. I go, yeah, you do want to cry
Yeah.
because that's something that we've never had before. So
Right.
therefore, we just keep running to something else
Mhm.
because we're so afraid we're not going to get it. We don't want to take the chance because somebody slapped our hand many times
Yes.
when we were much younger. And that's why my inner child model is all based on understanding, okay, what got us here in the first place.
Right.
If I can answer the why question, why do I think, feel, and do what I do,
Mhm.
I'll be in a lot better place. We will be in a lot better place.
Absolutely. And for all the men and women who are out there watching, just coming, Eddie and I both, we've done our own recovery journeys. Getting to a place where you are recovered, it doesn't happen from listening to one episode or listening to one podcast. It takes a lot of daily intentional effort to get to this place and to be able to create those connections with your partner, with your kids, with focus on other people. So I think that's one of the biggest things that people do is underestimate the amount of effort that this addiction takes to overcome. So I know we're running short on time, Eddie. I would love to hear you just be able to share a little bit with the people who are watching this. Where are you located? How can they get in touch with you if they're interested in your services? How can they go about doing that?
I I don't really take too many new clients, but if they did want to get in contact with me to talk to me about, questions and things like that, they can reach out to the inner child model at gmail.com. Again, inner child model at gmail.com. All my books are on Amazon. Go to Amazon, type in Capparrucci, you'll find all those there. And that's basically the way they can get a hold of me.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And thank you again so much for joining me today. I hope that we can do this again in the future at some point. And it was a pleasure having you. Thanks for coming.